Good morning. My name is Suzanne Strong, and I'm going to be your trainer today for this session on open discovery and specifically a deep dive into active learning. So, first, we're going to talk about what is active learning, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to discuss basically the difference between active learning enabled and active learning disabled review passes. We're going to go over a checklist. We're going to talk about batch settings. We're going to conduct a batch review, and then we're going to go over metrics, reporting, and facts and questions. So to that end, let's go ahead and get started. So basically, active learning is machine learning. You can decide whether or not to use it. I kind of think of active learning as the ultimate self-driving car. I don't have a self-driving car personally. I know several people who do, and they love it. So you kind of think of it, I kind of think of it as that, right? It's autonomous driving, right? So it's machine learning. Okay. So basically, it an active learning enabled review pass is machine learning. An active learning disabled review pass is the review pass where it's a linear type review where you're not using machine learning. So with an active learning enabled review pass, basically it can be based off of the entire database, a saved search, a custom index. We recommend you keep batches small. The default setting is 10 documents. After creating the batches, that default setting can be changed, but we recommend you keep it super small, just because the system learns after each batch is checked in. And so the quicker you check a batch in, the more quickly the system learns, right? So once review starts and tags are applied to documents, the primary tag, say it's relevant or responsive, because you're looking for responsiveness. So once tags are applied, batches are checked in, metrics become available on the documents you're checking in, right? So metrics like relevancy or predictions, this is where the training begins of the system, right? The system begins training the documents. And then documents are prioritized based on the predictions, what the system is predicting to be relevant or not relevant. Relevant would be the primary tag, right, in this scenario. And not relevant would basically be anything that's not tagged as what's not tagged as the primary tag of relevant or responsiveness. And so documents are organized. The system is learning from what we're tagging. So if I'm tagging several documents as relevant or responsive, and the other documents that I'm not tagging that way, the system is learning based on the extracted text of the documents. And so documents are grouped, prioritized in that manner. So I'm kind of reviewing my documents, and then the system is grouping the items. So as document review continues, all of the documents have been reviewed. I can decide whether or not to continue and review everything in the database or keep reviewing until a desired stopping point has been achieved. So that is an active learning enabled review pass. Active learning disabled review passes, as I mentioned, are linear reviews. Machine learning is not used. Documents are grouped by a family field. I use beg@, to keep families together, the parent and the child, right? So an email and all the attachments. And so then basically you have to create a saved search. I create it beforehand. Batch size is set at 200, but you can set it at 500 or 1,000, whatever works for you. With active learning disabled review passes, even though active learning is off, you can turn it on at any time, and metrics are running in the background. Okay. So then here's a checklist, things to keep in mind. Create a tag palette, right? So for your active learning enabled review pass, we have to create a tag palette, a separate tag palette for responsive documents, responsive, non-responsive for the review. I have created a few of these things beforehand, but we will go over them. So bear with me. For an active learning disabled review pass, I just make sure if I'm going to say review for privilege or something like that, that I have the tags I want in that tag palette. I review my coding form to make sure that all the tags are in the coding form and that they are seen, right? That they are visible. I make sure I have my search for my active learning disabled review pass if I'm using or creating a disabled review pass, the one that's not using machine learning. I also make sure that after creating the review passes, I create my rules. If you guys have done document review, I've done it a bunch of times in my lifetime. You need to create a coding form rule. So once you begin reviewing the documents, you've applied tags. You say if P, then Q, if responsive, then tag the confidentiality tag as well. If I've applied those tags, mark the document as reviewed. So after we create our review passes, we have to then go back to the coding forms and add our review rules. Okay, so that's the other part of the checklist. So I make sure that I've done all of that. Okay, so then basically those are the items we want to keep in mind as we go, and we can always just again review the settings of the review pass to make sure to see if we want to change anything. Okay, so those are kind of the things to keep in mind before we get going. So basically to that end, the first things we're going to do are we're going to take a look at our tag palette to make sure the tags are set up properly and everything is. Take a look at our coding forms, do the same thing. So here we find ourselves on the visual search dashboard. When you pop into review and transcripts, this is where we're going to find ourselves, right? So we're going to see the concept wheel, the results grid, right? But we want to go here to the left-hand side, the left side out pane, and we're going to click on the little case settings icon. In the bottom left here, the last icon, when I hover over it, it says case settings. So let's go ahead and select it, the left click of our mouse. And then we're going to select the fourth button in here, tag palette. Now, here we have our tag palette. I want to make sure I have two tag palettes set up for myself here with regard to the review passes that we're going to be creating. For my active learning disabled review pass, I'm going to be reviewing privileged documents. So I need to have my privileged status review, my privileged status tag palette set up, and it must have the two tags on it that I need. I already did this ahead of time, but we're just going to go take a peek at it. Here I have priv status. I select it with the left click of my mouse. Here I have privileged and not privileged. The defaults for the privileged status tag palette are only to include privileged. I'm going to select the little pencil icon. I already added not privileged by selecting the little create tags option here on the far right. And then I added not privileged and I clicked save. So that would be how I edited my tag palette. I'm going to click cancel here. That one is all set. Now we need to create a tag palette for our active learning enabled review pass. This is the machine learning review pass, right? Why? Yes, we're going to be reviewing for responsiveness in the active learning enabled review pass. I already have a responsive a responsive tag palette. So you ask yourself, why are you creating another tag palette? The reason is I need another one. Basically, I need one that is for the sole purpose of reviewing an active learning enabled review pass. So I need a tag palette that is for the sole purpose of reviewing an active learning enabled review pass. So the primary purpose would be just for active learning. So I need to create a new one. Okay. So here, I don't already have one, I'm pretty sure. No, I don't. So to that end, I'm just going to click the little plus sign. I just did a search to check. Here's my plus sign. I'm going to add one in. I'm going to call it AL for active learning underscore responsive. I'm having a hard time typing today, so if I make mistakes, please bear with me. I'm going to click save. Here is my tag palette here. I'm going to create tags. Create AL responsive. So this is for when I tag documents responsive, AL underscore non-responsive. And then why am I adding AL in front? So I don't get confused between documents I've tagged as responsive and documents I tag as AL responsive. simply because obviously we've already tagged certain documents responsive in this case. That's why. And we're just going to do AL for the review. And I click add. Now I'm going to add a tag group rule here. This is exclusive. What this means is I can only tag a document with one of these 3 tags. So I'm going to add in exclusive, and I'm going to click save here. Now I've added in this tag palette here, this tag group. Now we're going to go to coding forms. So here we have 4 coding forms. We're going to use the Priv Review coding form for our active learning disabled review pass, i.e. the one that I am not using machine learning on. Let's select it. This should already be all set. I don't think I need to do anything here yet. After creating my batch, I'll need to add a rule. Not yet. But let's just take a peek to make sure my tag is all set. So here are my tags. I'm just going to select it. For Priv status, my not Priv is already added here. As you remember, for my tag palette, I added in not Priv previous to this session. But if it was not here, if only privilege was showing up, I could select this little pencil icon here, and then I could go to wherever I needed to, and I could add in whatever item I needed, and then click save on the bottom. That's all set for us. What I do need to add now for coding forms is my active AL responsive coding form for when I create my active learning enabled review pass. So let's click the plus sign. So here it's AL underscore responsive. Let's add in my fields. I can select from the available field list and move it over to the selected fields. I can select one and double click, or I can use the arrow. So BegDoc, custodian, double click. Doc date is my ranked sort order date field. It includes email sent, wait for it, date modified, date created, that type of thing. Email from, email to, email subject. And I think those are fine for now. Tags. Let's add some tags. AL responsive, confidential. Priv status, priv reason. Click OK here. All right, and so then we're going to add one rule right now, and afterwards we will add another rule. So here, let's first click rules and let's click add. And this will be if responsive confidentiality must be tagged. If confidentiality so it is a form rule. We're going to create a review rule after we create our batch. So right now it's a form rule. If tag AL responsive is tagged, combination all of these, then tag group confidentiality must be tagged. Okay. So again, if it's responsive, we must include confidentiality. And I click OK. And I click save. Now I didn't check the priv rule, so we can actually check that. There may or may not be any. Oh, there is one. If tag group priv status is tagged, then priv reason must be tagged. Important to note. But we will be adding a rule here after we create our batches. Any questions about tag palettes, creating the tag palette, or creating the coding form? And this basically will be for our primary, used for our active learning enabled review pass, not this one, sorry. This will be for our active learning disabled review pass. AL responsive will be for our active learning enabled review pass, okay? And it's important that you set these up ahead of time. Now let's basically go back to our visual search dashboard. it's important if you're just going to do a regular review pass, an active learning disabled review pass, that you have a saved search set up. You must create a saved search. So here I have advanced search. Now I'm just going to go here on the left-hand side, my slide out pane, and I'm going to pin this. I'm going to clear my search history. Now I have already created a search here for priv terms, so I already have my search set up. But I'm just going to show you what I did. Here, I basically want to create a search for our active learning disabled review pass where we're not using machine learning. And I basically want to include family. And I want to use, for my priv terms, we've already basically created keyword management. We added in a whole bunch of keywords that had priv terms. So I'm going to search for those. Wait for it. Keywords. Priv terms. Change this to or, my connector, add a plus sign. And then I want to search for any documents I've tagged as privileged. So doc tags, priv status, privileged. And then basically here, I'm going to click search. I'm not going to save it. I already have one here. Well, so I should get like 500 something documents, 513, right? Okay. So that would be my search. Now, if you haven't tagged any documents and you're just going to use keywords, you can always just do that. I'm going to click clear by clicking the new button. Let me just check my priv terms, make sure they match. Yep, 513. Okay. So that is the search I'm going to be using for my active learning disabled review pass. Now I've set up everything. We're all set to actually start creating our review passes. Okay. So let's go to the left review pass manager. No review passes have been found. To create one, we click Add New, the plus sign. This is where I can turn off active learning. So right now, if I create a review pass, active learning is on. It means I'm using machine learning. Okay. If I select it and move it to the left, that means it's off. So we can decide which ones we're going to create first. So first, basically here, what I'm going to do is create the active learning disabled review pass first. This is where we're not using machine learning. And again, I can always turn it on later on, and that's the beauty of this. So metrics are always running in the background, and I can always come back and edit it and turn it on. Okay. So here, let's give it a name, AL disabled, review pass. So actually, let's call it priv. No, that's fine. All right, so here I'm going to say this is my coding form. That is why it's important to create the coding form first, because you immediately need to select it. And here I'm going to click priv. Here's my primary review purpose. So this is why creating the tags was so important. So I'm using my active learning disabled review pass. So it's not as important from a standpoint of having a primary tag for this. So here I can use privileged. However, when I use my active learning enabled, I will need my primary tag specifically. So here I have priv. This is the tag that I'm using from that coding form to tag my documents as privileged. Here, for my active learning disabled review pass, I must use a saved search. So here, I must scroll down. Here's my saved search, priv terms. Here, the batch size is automatically set to 200. You can change this to anywhere from 10 to 999. Okay, 200 is a good number from a standpoint of people can get through that quickly. When I used to be a paralegal, uh, I used to do it like 500 to 1,000, but I think 200 is super quick. People will be able to get through them. And then you can basically do rolling productions, okay? So here you can also do a batch prefix. These are priv documents, so I'll do a prefix of PRIV, okay? So basically that will allow me to kind of review these. So here, batch by, so then I can choose to batch by field, and I can choose basically the field if I want. If that's something that is kind of an important thing, and I can choose to batch by, say, custodian, okay? You can choose whatever field here you want, but I say batch by custodian, batch by batch priority, low, medium, high critical. So basically this is just how important it is for people to get through these documents. If these are priv documents, it may or may not be as important, but critical, I'd say in this instance. So I'm just going to mark these as high because we want to make sure we get through these, right? Family field. Do you want to have family kept together? The answer to that is yes. If so, we need to use beg at. That family field is beg at. So select beg at here. Layout style. So grid, basically, you will see both the document viewer and the results grid. Form view, you basically will only see the document viewer. So here we want grid, okay? Batching order, basically, I can sort if I want. I can sort by date. So it will just, where is it? Hold on, I can't find it. Good thing there's this handy dandy little search box here, document date. And that's the ranked sort order date field. So if you're going to select a date field, I would suggest that one. You can choose ascending or descending or add another batching order here if you so choose. Now, I admit I cannot recall if I set this up here, and if I didn't, I apologize in advance. I probably didn't. These are grayed out. Oh, they aren't grayed out. Oh, well, at least I have one. Okay, well, that's something. I wish I had more than one reviewer group here. I don't. But hey, one is better than none. You can add a review group here, or you can have no review group here. So review group, I can select reviewers. Otherwise, I don't have to have any specific review group here. If I had more than one group, I could select one group here to be the review group. And then if I had additional groups, i.e. I added Sandin review group here, and then I added expert reviewers, Sandin expert reviewers as well in this section. I could have Sandin external reviewers here, and then I could have Sandin expert reviewers here for the QC. This would be the QC to make sure that everyone who reviewed this group the first time did the review, everything looks correct. I did not do everything. I did not do it perfect. So I'm just going to select all and then select Sandin. That's the only one I have. And I'll just select Sandin here, but you get the idea. So once I'm all set with these changes, with these selections, I click Save. It takes a few minutes, so we just have to let it do its thing and create it. And it says, hey, it was added. And so it's just going to build it. Okay. So we're just going to give it a minute. Any questions while we're waiting about anything I've set up so far? Now, the great part is I can always just, once it's set up, I can click the little pencil icon in the upper left, and I can turn on active learning. And I can always start using the analytics. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to set up our active learning enabled review pass, okay? And there'll be some additional options that you'll be able to see here for this specific review pass that did not exist previously for the disabled review pass. We cannot set up, we need to kind of let that one go. It should go. I don't know that it will let me create a new one. Will it? Oh, it will. Okay. Well, bear with me. All right. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So now for active learning enabled review pass, we are going to leave this slider bar to the right because we want active learning on. So we're going to give this a name, AL, whoopsie, responsive. AL enabled responsive review. You can call it whatever you want, okay? As long as you know what is what. And by the way, you'll always know if active learning is on because of the light bulb, okay? Now we choose our coding form, AL responsive. Here we need to choose our primary review purpose, okay? So our primary review purpose basically will allow us to specifically choose the specific tag. So if I select here and I choose, here's my tag palette, AL responsive, that means my primary purpose of this review is tagging documents for responsiveness. So then it's basically always going to basically look for that specific documents that are responsive. Extracted text, basically as I start tagging documents and I tag them as responsive, it's going to start looking for documents like documents that match, okay? Notice, basically here, the scope is different. For the active learning disabled, I could only choose a saved search. Here, I can choose the entire case, a saved search, or a custom index. We're going to choose the entire case. Layout style, grid, or form. Grid review, again, is the document viewer and the results grid. Form is just the document viewer. So here, we're going to choose grid. Okay? So here I have recall. So desired recall, here we leave it set to 70, but desired recall is specifically the percentage of actually positive documents that were predicted to be positive. Again, positive is based on the primary review purpose, right? So we basically want documents, we want to locate documents that are positive based on what we're tagging, right? So we're going to leave this at 70. That's our desired, the minimum recall. We can always come in back and change this later on. Again, here we have our review group. I wish I had selected more than one, added more when I created my users and my groups. I did not, so we're just going to have to select what I've got here and just be okay with that. So here I have everything set up, and notice what you might not notice is I can't batch by family again because that's not an option. It does not allow for that. It's because it's based on extracted text. I can't mass tag. And basically the purpose of active learning is to get to the merits of the case as quickly as possible. So I'm looking for like documents. And also, I can't choose my batch size. At least not right here. The automatic default batch size is 10. I know that seems like a small number. I can go back in after setting this up and change the batch size to a larger number. However, the way you get to metrics most quickly is to have a smaller batch size. That's like the magic number. As you start checking in documents, it recognizes like documents more quickly. So that's what we kind of think of as the magic number. Here I'm going to click Save. Any questions before I click Save? Okay. And we can see that on the left-hand side, my PRIV AL disabled review pass has been created. My enabled review pass is in the middle of being created, and see that light bulb is on. It's like shining, right? And that one is off. So we now do have to give this one a minute to create before we go in and we change or we set up our review rules. Super important. I always forget this step. We don't want to forget this step today. All right, so this is still creating. So while that's creating, what we can do is go to the PRIV review coding form. I'm going to select the case settings icon right now. And we're going to go to that coding form. We're going to create our rule. So I'm going to select coding forms here. And we're going to create that rule for priv review. Let me make sure I select the right coding form. So what am I doing? We need to create a review rule so that when we conduct a review for the review passes, we have a rule. So if you've ever done review, a document review, I've done a bunch in my lifetime, there's a rule that says, if I've reviewed this document, mark it as reviewed. So basically here, I want to click edit. And then I want to add a rule. If reviewed, mark review. What's it called? Yeah. Review rule. If required tag groups are tagged, I should say if tagged, mark reviewed. If tagged, mark reviewed. If required tag groups are tagged, then change the status of the review pass. So for the priv review pass, if the required tag groups are tagged, then change the status of the review pass from not reviewed to reviewed. Okay? So that just means that a review pass will look correct. So I'm just going to click save here. That one is all set. Let's just take a peek. I can't kind of change the rules yet until this is set up. Okay, it's still running. And we're back. Here we can see a review and transcripts module, and we can see here on the review pass management screen that our active learning enabled review pass has now been created. Okay, so what we're going to do before we actually go into the review passes and begin reviewing our badges is simply we're going to go and create that review pass rule for this active learning enabled review pass. We've already done that for our privileged active learning disabled review pass, but we need to create the review rule for the active learning enabled review pass. Where do we do that? We do that in the case settings. Here in case settings here by selecting this little icon here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to select that. Here, what we do is we're just going to go to the coding form here on the left-hand side, or sorry, the right-hand side, I apologize. Select the coding form, and I'm going to go and I'm going to select the AL responsive coding form here. It's the last one on the bottom on the left-hand side. And here I'm going to go here, I'm going to click the pencil icon on the top, and then I'm going to select rules. We only have the one rule, right? It is the form rule. We need to add a review rule. So I click add here, and I'm going to select here review rule. And if tagged, so if required tags are tagged, mark reviewed. So if required tags are tagged, mark reviewed, it's my review rule, it's enabled. Now I just have to simply select the review pass, and we're going to then change that from not reviewed to reviewed, and it's okay. We're going to click that, and now we just need to simply click save here on the bottom left. And now we've edited and we've created that review pass rule. It's really important to remember to do that to make sure that once I start reviewing documents, they then get marked as reviewed as I keep going. Okay, so now let's go into our review passes. So where do I find those? So we have to re-enter the case in order to open a batch, okay? And so batches automatically get assigned. So basically to a reviewer. So here I'm going to go to the upper left-hand side, and I'm going to select that hamburger icon. And I'm going to go back into review transcripts. Okay, now we're going to basically select our case card one more time. It's a favorite. It's on the left-hand side, so I just select it. Now we see here, when we open our case, we see the funnel, and the funnel will show us the number of documents in our case, and it shows the number of documents loaded, and then it shows the size. And then in review, it shows this green section, and this is actually the number of documents, not in the case, but in review passes. So what you'll notice is actually it only shows 3,314 documents in review. That number doesn't quite match the number of documents loaded, and that's because there may be some documents that did not go into the review pass that didn't have readable extracted text, and it might be that they were GIFs or uh, BMPs or something like that. So that's why that number might differ, okay? And this color green matches the color green of the review passes, and that now we can see that I've got an active learning enabled review pass and a privileged active learning disabled review pass. The funnel here on the left, by the way, is also orange, but there's nothing in the produced funnel because we haven't produced documents yet. But to open up a review pass, we would select one of these. I would not select the open case orange button, okay? So what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna go into the active learning enabled review pass. So I just select it here, okay? Wait for it. Oh, there we go. Okay, I had to make sure I selected that little button there. Okay, so what we see here is, by the way, I'm just going to drag this down. We see that there are 10 documents here. As I mentioned, the default number for an active learning enabled review pass is 10, okay? So we see that there are 10 documents here, and basically they're not in order, they're in order of their doc number, but you see that they're not, we don't keep the families are not attached here. Basically, and again, I mentioned that it's because of the fact that it's looking for extracted text, it just basically is showing us basically these documents, and there's no, that it doesn't group the families, right? So here we have the items. There's 10 documents. If we look at the top here, it shows currently none are reviewed, all documents. If I select the drop down, not reviewed, all documents reviewed. Okay, if I wanted to, I could check in the batch. I haven't reviewed anything yet, okay? So we're not gonna do that. But kind of just so we know here that I can do that. Here we go, select the document viewer again, and we're gonna go in and we're gonna review documents. Now here we have our viewers, web viewer, image viewer, production, text, metadata. And then on the right-hand side, we have our review pass. This is our coding form. We have basically the active learning enabled review pass or the disabled review pass. Here we have our review status on the right-hand side, not reviewed, reviewed, or on hold. So basically, this is basically once I select the tags, I can change a document. It will change a document from not reviewed to reviewed if I go to the next item, and I can always put it on hold. And this is where I put a document on hold if I am basically not sure or I need another reviewer, say I'm a paralegal at a law firm, say I need a partner to take a peek at it first and I'm not sure how to review this document or kind of what I want done with it, I can always kind of put it on hold, okay? So kind of here we have that set up. Here I have my tags. My active learning responsive, further review, non-responsive, responsive. The responsive one has this little tag on the right-hand side. This shows that it's for the primary review purpose, i.e. responsiveness is my primary review purpose. So that is what this review is all about, responsive, okay? So to that end, basically, that is kind of what the extracted text is looking for when I'm doing my machine learning, is looking for responsiveness. So as we kind of go through this, we're kind of going to be tagging for that purpose in this review. So here I have a coding form rule, remember, and it was if responsive, I must tag a document with the, as like inside of, sorry, the coding form rule is if tagged responsive, I must also tag a document with an item inside of the confidentiality group, right? So kind of just be aware of that. If I don't meet that coding form rule, it will not allow me to continue on, okay? So here we also have some other tags I can kind of scroll down with. And also here under the review status, I can also add some additional items such as email to, email from, and such, so on and so forth, if I needed to. So to that end, we can kind of go ahead here. And right now, by the way, here on our web viewer, we can see our native file. We can move through the documents. We can make it larger or smaller here with the minus the plus. We can fit to page, fit to width. If I had highlight hits that I added in, which I did not, we could see them here. I can search for a word here. And here is this little camera icon. It's a tip on the fly. If I tip it here, if I select this, it will create an image. If an image does not already exist, and then I could click the image button here, and then I could basically redact if a redaction needed to be applied, and that way I could then produce the document if I needed to redact some portion of it for privilege. Okay. So to that end here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select AL responsive, and then I'm going to click confidential. And then here, I can always undo that. I can click save. I can go back, vote next, or save and next. I'm going to click save and next. Now I've got another one here. This is just a photo here. I'm just going to apply previous tags, and I'm going to click save and next. This one I'm going to say is privileged, and it's attorney-client communication. Save and next. This one is responsive. Save and next. And we kind of see how this goes, right? So now on the upper right-hand side, in the results grid, we see that I have not reviewed 6, but I can clearly have reviewed 4 documents, right? So we're kind of just going to go forward here, and we're going to keep going. Okay, so we're just going to finish reviewing these really quickly. So I'm just going to apply previous tags to the rest of these items. Now, just one thing here I want to show you is if I wanted to, I could mask tag these. Okay, so I'm going to go to the left-hand side. I've hidden the document viewer, and I could select the icon here in the upper left, right? And then I can mask tag these, right? Tag documents. If I mask tag these items, basically what would happen is simply that I can tag them as say responsive if I want to, right? And then confidential and click apply and click apply here. And when I do that here, I clicked apply, fine. But what we'll notice if I scroll over here, did that work? Is that it still shows me, no, it did not. See, it still will show not reviewed 2 because it will not mark them as reviewed in my review pass, right? So it will tag them, but it will mark them as not reviewed. So I still need to go into the actual documents and actually select them here and click save and next and click save and next in order for them to be marked as reviewed in my actual review pass. So just kind of as a click save there, the last one. So that way it's marked as reviewed. Okay, so even though you can mask tag, that is just something to be aware of because I set that review rule up. Now, once we're done, we check in a batch and it says, hey, do you want to open the next available batch? And then I check it and then I open it up. And so I'm just going to click submit. It's going to give me a new batch. Every time I check in a batch, it then starts. Okay. We'll just ignore that little report, that little error there. Every time I check in a batch, it will basically give me results. Basically, it will kind of start analyzing my data. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead now and take a look and open up a document. Okay. Here, basically, we see the document viewer, and I've had this open before, but let's kind of take a look at it in this instance. So here I have the document viewer open, and here I'm going to select the relationships pane. Here you can see the relationships pane, and I can see the family member. And as you notice, here I see BegDoc, BegAt. And if I look at the results grid, I only see the BegDoc. And as I mentioned, when we're looking at active learning enabled to review passes, I don't see the family member. So here I can see the family member that exists, but I can't actually select it, nor could I tag it. Okay. So kind of just something to be aware of there. Okay. So if you wanted to, again, we can continue reviewing, but in this instance, we're going to leave that as is. Questions about reviewing? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and let's go into another case. All right, I always go into the same case because it's a case that I've actually done a lot more review of. But if we actually just go into the one we took a peek at, let me just show you. I've reviewed 10. I've got 3,282 left to review. I haven't reviewed any of the pre-review past. We can enter that just for 1 second before I go back into a different case. Let's just go to the review pass for 1 second. Here I have basically my 2 review passes, and here on the review pass management icon here on the left-hand side of the slide out pane, I can basically see the overview, reports, and settings. And here's where basically we can look at metrics, we can look at reports, and we can edit the settings of our review pass. Okay. You can always, by the way, delete. You can click the edit button here on the upper right-hand side. So a couple different things. We're going to look at the actual metrics in a different case, because obviously I've only reviewed 10 documents, not as helpful when it comes to kind of looking at metrics. Okay. However, just as a heads up, I can manage batches. I can update documents. I believe there's a question on the test that asks a couple questions about what you can do to batches. So I can manage batches. I can update batches. Okay, so kind of update documents. So that's kind of something I can do here. So just be aware. I can click the edit pencil icon. So this is my active learning enabled review pass. Active learning is on. You see the little light bulb, it's on. Here I can change the batch size. The batch size is 10. If you wanted to, again, make it larger, you can do so. I can change the review groups. Okay, so those are a couple things that I can edit when it comes to this review pass. Okay. And the settings also, you see if I click this little pencil icon here. My disabled review pass, it's a little bit different. So here we see the settings. I don't have to click the pencil icon to edit this. But this again, active learning is not on. If you wanted to turn it on at some point, you decide, hey, I want to use it, you can do so. Here, we see the batch size is 200. Okay. I batched it by the custodian. The family field here is beg at. So I'm keeping the families together. Okay. I can click here the manage batches here, just kind of as a heads up. Couple things I can do here. I have one here, it says in progress. Here's the batch ID that's in progress. I can export this. I can unassign this one that's assigned to me. I can unassign it. I can rebatch the documents that are batched. Okay. I can export this case batch report. I can change the case batch timeout. So it times out in a day. If you want, I can change it to half a day or 4 days. Okay. So the things I can do to this batch, again, export, change the batch timeout. I can unassign a batch that's currently assigned, only that is currently assigned. I can rebatch unreviewed documents. I can view completed batches. It's like one batch has been completed and it was completed by me. No documents in the batch are on hold, and you could only put documents on hold one at a time. You cannot put the entire batch on hold. Okay, so now here we're going to look at the other items in a different review pass. So I'm going to click the hamburger icon, review transcripts. And we're going to go into OVICH versus LIT. Here I have several different review passes. We're going to click on enter case. Now, granted, not that many documents have been reviewed. I won't lie. I don't do document review much anymore unless unless my arm has been twisted. All right, so I'm going to go to review pass management. All right, so we've got several different review passes here. So let's take a look at some metrics. I've got positive, negative, on hold, total documents, review, performance, insights. The blue items are hyperlinks. They will take me directly to the documents you see. Positive is basically the documents, basically, it can be anything, by the way, but basically it is my positive, in this case for responsive, is responsive, right? Because I am creating a responsive review pass, and responsive was my primary tag. So positive is anything that basically would be responsive, okay? Negative would be documents that are not responsive. Again, because I was responsive is primary, non-responsive is negative, right? So it's predicting that 1,100 documents, basically 1.1K documents, are positive and the rest are negative. Now, it's hard to predict at first because my active learning status is poor, meaning I haven't really reviewed that many documents, right? I've only tagged 71 out of 4,100 documents. So I really need to keep reviewing. It basically says, hey, on the insights, keep reviewing is what it basically says. You need to keep reviewing, Suzanne. Okay. So basically here, I can click on any of these to see what I tagged. Here's unreviewed. I've got 16 conflicts, which means the system didn't agree with what I tagged. Based on the extracted text and based on how I tagged the other documents, it's saying, hey, we think you made a mistake. It says 2.9K are negative, 27 documents tagged manually. So I tagged about 100 total. My math is right, not quite 100. And then here, 2.9K are unreviewed. 2 are on hold, so 2 I was unsure of, and it's predicted that these are negative, basically. Total documents here. Now it says 269 are omitted. Why is that? From the universe of documents that are in this batch. So you could click on the hyperlink to see. Look at all these documents. We could just click one to see what it is. It should be a picture of some kind. Or nothing. Okay, so that one is nothing. No, let me take it, click the image. So some of these just have nothing in them. Some of them should be some pictures. I'm pretty sure some of these are images. So yeah, they're coming up as nothing, and I'm not sure why that is. So you have to bear with me, but these should be images. But right now, what it's basically saying is it doesn't read any extracted text. So the bottom line is it's not reading extracted text, okay? Which is fine. Clearly there was nothing there. Either way. So then here it says 4,000 documents, unreviewed, 41 total conflicts. Either way, 41 total conflicts. So we got precision and recall. Okay, so precision, what is that? So these are all really technical terms, but precision is the percentage of predicted positive documents that are actually positive. So out of the 100 so documents I reviewed, it's saying 58 point, this is review performance, 58.62%. So these are the percentage of predicted positive documents that are actually positive. Recall is it's displaying the percentage of actually positive documents that were correctly predicted to be positive. So this is the predicted positive that were actually positive, and this is the percentage of actually positive documents that were correctly predicted to be positive. Okay, and again, my status is poor. I need to keep reviewing. So then we have prevalence. What is prevalence? So prevalence is the estimated percentage of documents in the review pass that are positive. Prevalence, the percentage of documents in the review pass that are positive. Okay, so it's saying the responsive documents it believes are approximately, up 1,200 to 1,500. Okay, and I'm rounding down, up, running up, down. Okay, so now we have review progress. Okay, so I haven't done any review. So this is through today, but I haven't done any review in ages, like not like in ages, right? But it's basically showing me positive, negative. So primary is, again, positive would be responsive, negative, non-responsive, on hold. Okay. And then again, we have recall, again, displaying the percentage of actually positive documents that were correctly predicted to be positive. So it's showing me, and I can click here up through January 13th, May 9th, last time I did review, kind of show it's showing me that I can switch to week or month. Okay. Now, here is basically the documents I manually reviewed. Now, at some point, I'm hoping that these will be hyperlinked so I can click on these. But at the present moment here, they're not. So I can basically just see negative, on hold, yes, no. But then I see here's like a conflict. It didn't agree with this one. It didn't agree with this one. So I can see whether it agrees or not. And it says that here, Paula has also done some reviews. So I can kind of go through and see like what these were. And basically what I could then do, since I can't check it here, is I could go to the conflicts and I could select here, since this is a hyperlink, and go to those conflicts. And then we could start reviewing those conflicts. And what is really great about this is for all of these conflicts, I can select them, click actions, and assign them to a QC batch. So say I need someone else to review, choose a review pass, second line review, click submit. And now I've created a QC batch. Okay. So that's kind of a great thing about these. I'm going to go back. Okay. So now I've just added those to a different batch for someone else, for the other reviewers to review. Okay. So now here we have, again, our batch information. So here we have unassigned batches. There are 5. Batch documents 100. Nothing's on hold, no batches. Completed batches 12. Batches in progress, unbatched documents. We already talked about managing batches. I can update the documents here by clicking update. So that is basically the metrics here. I can click reports. Here we have relevancy scores. Okay, so basically relevancy scores. This displays a breakdown of the documents, basically a breakdown of the documents and their review pass based on their current relevancy score. So here you can drag this. This is showing 30, minus 30, plus 30, basically. They kind of, we think of this as the sweet spots, kind of just like we think of 70 for the recall as the sweet spot. But I can drag this if I want, like 50-50, and it'll show, and then it will show these kind of, and then I could kind of go here, and you can then see relevancy index, right? So positive 8, negative 2.1K, on hold, there's 2, unreviewed 2.1, right? So if I wanted, I can change this again. These drag a lot better now. I admit I had a hard time at first, but I have gotten better at it, or they're just easier to use. So now, since I've changed the positive to 80, we see that it thinks that there are approximately 750 based on my relevancy index. So again, it's displaying all the documents in the review pass based on their current relevancy score. So because I changed that to 80, it is seeing that there could be approximately 750. And then I could click here and look at them. Okay. So relevancy index totals 1.1, 2.9. These have not changed. These don't change here, but unreviewed for 4K. Now desired recall. This displays the number of estimated documents here at desired recall points. So our desired recall number is 70 here, but it goes up to 80 and 90, right? So basically here, it's a configurable setting that sets the goal for the percentage of positive documents. If we set a higher number, higher desired recall, it will introduce more false positives. While setting it lower, we'll get lower number of false positives, okay? So here, you can see that breakdown is 1,699. For 80, it's 1,906. For 90, it's 2,149. Okay, so that's desired recall. At the bottom here, we have estimated predicted relevant documents for AL responsive. So here we kind of see what I have been reviewing. So it'll show the number of manually reviewed documents and what it's predicting to be relevant. Okay, so that is basically the reports here. I can click edit if I wanted to edit these. I can also delete as well if I wanted to delete this review pass. For Priv, it's the same thing basically, but note, nothing shows up here. However, under overview, this review pass, let's see, it's not showing positive, negative on hold because again, I'm not using the primary tag, right? However, if I turned it on, immediately these numbers would populate, basically because it would start, it would know the metrics. But right now I don't know that I've tagged anything here, but if I started and I turned it on, it would immediately populate. Okay, and I started reviewing. So that's the great thing about active learning disables review passes. Okay. Questions about metrics. Questions about anything I've gone over so far. Here we have our overview in our help center of review passes. So here we can see setup of review passes. We have information, facts, and questions about review passes. The categories we have also unlocking the benefits of active learning. That was the white paper that we have on it. And also I have information. This is a blog article that was written about active learning that gives a lot of information, and it describes the metrics and the reports. So a lot of the information that I went over about active learning here can be found here in this blog article, and it's on our webpage, on our website, IPRO resources. So when it comes to, and I'm just going to kind of go back here to our webpage, when it comes to practicing for our exam, if you ever decide to get certified, a lot of the information about active learning can be found here under Manage Review Passes. So studying all this information and just learning it and kind of figuring out how to configure the review passes, creating them, can all be found here. So it can help you, but also just analyzing this, studying it will really help you. And I hope you guys have a great day. And this concludes your training.